I'd like to ask you all to remain standing. I'd like to ask you to remain standing for the national anthem. Would everyone please stand for the national anthem? Thank you.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' bright glare, their bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you.
Thank you. I want to introduce Natalie Foreman. Natalie, stay up here for just a minute. I want to tell you all a little bit about Natalie. Please have a seat. I'm Catherine Mossbacker, head of the Center for Houston's Future. Natalie is George Foreman's daughter. She is one of 9 children. I don't think I have to introduce, one of 10, she tells me. I got that wrong. One of 10 children. And she's a native beauty. She has a pre-med degree from Baylor. She is a middle school science teacher, and she tells me that many of her students are in fact taller than she is. So we all wish and hope for Natalie that she becomes a real heavyweight in the music industry. So let's give another round of applause to Natalie Foreman. On behalf of the Center Board and the Center staff, it's a pleasure to welcome you here today at our annual luncheon. J.M. Lauren once said, "It's not what we have in our life, but who we have in our life that counts." And today, I am grateful to all of you in this room, the who's, who support the work of the Center. First, I'd like to ask my board and advisory council to stand and be recognized. All of you, please stand up. Don't be shy. Board and advisory council, Center for Houston's Future. Next, I'd like to thank Chevron, our presenting sponsor, and Joni, thank you again for your generosity this year. We are so appreciative of all your contributions to the work of the Center. I want to recognize our major underwriters, Bank of America, El Paso, Fulbright and Jaworski, and Shell. Thank you all so much. And all of the underwriters that are listed in your program, and there is quite a long list, as well as they'll be on the screen during the lunch hour. So take a look, and again, we're so grateful. Today, with all of your support, we have achieved another record-breaking luncheon. So thank you very, very, very much. We are also joined today, as we are throughout the year in our work, by a number of public officials and their staff. I'd like to ask all of you to stand and let us thank you for your service. Public officials and your staff, please stand and let us thank you. We also are blessed today to have a special guest, our beloved former First Lady and Texas Treasurer, Barbara Bush. Barbara, please stand and be recognized. I want to give a special thanks to Kristen Smith and her team from the Greater Houston Partnership, our affiliate, and to our center staff, particularly Ann Shaw and Mercedes Santos-Garay, for their incredible efforts to make this event a success. I'd like to also give a huge thanks to our honorary committee and our host committee, Rufus and Yvonne Cormier, our luncheon vice chairs, who will be our chairs for next year's luncheon, and to Leslie Blanton, our chair of the luncheon today. Thank you, Leslie, Rufus, and Yvonne, for your dedication and your commitment to our event today. So, what is the work of the center that you are supporting today by your attendance at this luncheon? I'd like to tell you just a little bit about it. As a nonprofit that serves as the region's think tank, we have three primary focuses for our work. First, regional research and strategic planning. Secondly, community engagement and collaboration. And third, business and civic leadership. In the area of regional research and strategic planning, we have our Scenarios 2040 project. And I think most of you know we're going to have a little sneak preview today after lunch, so you'll hear more about that in just a little bit. The Indicator Program is the center's annual regional report card and symposium on critical quality of place indicators such as air quality, green buildings, water supply, and this year we're working on the issue of education. In the area of community engagement and collaboration, we host timely and topical speakers throughout the year. We co-sponsor a live television series with PBS called Houston Have Your Say, set up in a town hall format, and it's a very lively discussion. And we also incubate solutions to pressing issues like our region's health care and how we can improve that. So currently the center is collaborating with the City of Houston, with the Harris County Healthcare Alliance, and we are launching a new nonprofit called the Greater Houston Health Information Exchange that will move doctors from paper records to electronic medical records. And I love to say, how often have you gone to your doctor and you still fill out that same form on that clipboard every 3 months or however often you go? Well, this will be a solution that will affect all of us. And once these doctors and hospitals and care providers are on the electronic medical record system, we will be able to exchange that information in between doctors and providers across the region. Another example of our collaboration, thank you, is the Jung Center is honoring the center at their annual event on March 22nd. As you leave today, there'll be some information about that event, and we urge you to join the Jung Center in hearing Doris Kearns Goodwin talk again about leadership, a key issue. And that brings me to my final area, business and civic leadership. All of you know Houston is a national and international region. And with the goal of widening the circle and deepening the bench of diverse leadership, The center educates and empowers emerging and proven business leaders to apply their skills and their experience to the civic challenges of our region. Speaking of leadership, you'll notice the theme of our luncheon today is the future of leadership. One of my very favorite quotations regarding leaders and leadership goes like this, and I will say the hunters in the room will especially appreciate this. It goes like this: if you're not the lead dog, the scenery doesn't change much. Think about that. We have the opportunity today to honor 3 lead dogs, and to introduce 2 of those lead dogs is our luncheon chair and my dear friend Leslie Blanton. Leslie Blanton.
Hello and welcome. She introduced me by name. I'm Leslie Blanton. I'm also a member of the Board of Directors of the Center for Houston's Future, and I'm a graduate of the Fall 2010 Business Civic Leadership Forum. And I'm truly honored to be the chair of this luncheon today. Before I do anything else, I want to add my thanks to Yvonne and Rufus Cormier for all of the work that they have done as vice chairs of the luncheon. We could not have done it without them, and I am very grateful. Thank you. Now, you know that the mission of the Center for Houston's Future is to advance the Houston region as one of the top 10 global communities in which to live. We do that work by making it happen by all of you coming here today, all of you in this room, by your support of the center, are helping us make that happen. And in these tough economic times, I have to say it is astounding and heartening that all of you stepped up in support of the crucial work of the center. As my good friend Gene Vaughn likes to say, the future is a choice, not a fate. And I'd like to thank you for making the choice to be here today. And speaking of Gene Vaughn, I do have the best task of any of us here today. I am honored and delighted to be presenting the 2011 Eugene H. Vaughn Civic Leadership Award. As the name of the luncheon suggests, the center spends much of its time focusing on the future of leadership. Through the leadership forums, the Scenarios 2040 project, the indicator symposiums, and the other events that Catherine mentioned, we deepen the bench and widen the circle of diverse civic leadership for the 8-county region. But we also decided that it was vitally important to recognize and honor those civic leaders who have laid the foundation upon which we continue to build the future of leadership. So in 2004, we began by honoring Gene Vaughn with the award that now bears his name. In the years since then, we have honored James Kettleson, Ben Love, Bill Barnett, Reverend William Lawson, Ned Holmes, and last year we honored my personal favorite, my father-in-law, Jack Blanton. This year we are proud and delighted to honor pioneers in both business and civic leadership, the brothers Felix and Lupe Fraga. And in order to do their stories justice, we have interviewed some of their family and friends for this tribute to them.
The Center for Houston's Future presents the Eugene H. Vaughn Civic Leadership Award annually to individuals whose lifetime work has significantly shaped the future of the Houston region. This year, we honor Lupe and Felix Fraga.
Lupe is one of the first people to reach out to me and to offer words of encouragement and support. And he does more than just talk the talk. Lupe walks the walk of a leader.
He and his brothers have this legacy of giving back to the neighborhood where they came from, because they came from a very poor neighborhood and have not forgotten where they come from.
He's just been so involved with so many different civic organizations, and along with my uncle, they have a hard time just saying no. So I think it's just that ultimate love for Houston and love for people.
Lupe has been a leader, a participator, a giver, an entrepreneur, and a difference maker for many, many years. That's what I think about Lupe Fraga.
When I think about Lupe, I think about someone of great character, integrity, commitment, a trailblazer. He is a trailblazer for Houston, for the community, for Latinos around the state. Those are the things that come to mind when I think about Lupe.
Well, you know, you need to know that he comes from a legacy of giving, a legacy of neighborhood. I guess you would call it activism in those days. His mother was called Angelita, which means little angel, and they call her the little angel of the neighborhood there in the East End. They were always doing something for the neighbors. Obviously, the poor neighborhood is much poorer than it is now, and they came from that legacy. And through the years, he has been involved in probably all kinds of community things, especially Ripley House there in the East End.
Lupe Fraga, you have to know him. You have to realize how long he's been doing what he's been doing. Therefore, he's made a difference in the lives of so many. He's mentored so many.
Well, you know, whether you're looking at his work with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce or the Federal Reserve, or his leadership around the state, there isn't an area that I think is left untouched by Lupe and by his mentorship.
I'm only putting this on because orange is in my blood, orange is in my tie. But for you, Lupe, I will put this, put this cap on. His lifelong dream/goal is what he's doing today. And that is he's serving as a regent at Texas A&M University. Now I'll take it off.
We are indebted to you, Dad, for all the great things you've done for the city and all of the, just being an example to us and showing us that if you do things for the right reasons and if you care about people and relationships, that you can accomplish everything.
Well, first of all, I think of Felix as a guy who works in the now. He's interested in what he can do to make things happen right then almost. And it's part of, it's the result of a long-term view, he says, but that's not the face he presents. If he can get a brick repaired in an old street over in the East End, where it preserves his character, he's so happy he practically hops up and down.
I'll never forget my first meeting with him. It was at Ripley House, of course. And I came through the back door and there was Felix in the middle of a huge throng of people, directing traffic, giving a tour, giving a piece of advice to a young person, stopping off at an artist's class where there were a bunch of community residents to say hello, dashing up the stairs to the health clinic, greeting 100 more people, and then turning around and saying, and what can I do for you, and how can I help you?
He's a magnificent first baseman for the University of Houston, one of the first Mexican Americans to play baseball at the University of Houston, if not the first. He was so good that upon graduation from the University of Houston, the St. Louis Cardinals drafted him and wanted him to come and play over there. Now, the significance of the story is at the time, Stan Musial was their first baseman. And if anybody knows anything about baseball, you know that Stan Musial is one of the greatest baseball players of all time. But that's how good Felix was, that the team would draft him while they had Stan Musial. Felix turned down that offer to pursue a master's degree in the Graduate School of Social Work at St. Mary's University. When I thought about it, that's just like Felix, you know, to put the concerns of the community over his own personal ambitions, because I know he loved to play sports.
There's just been so much that he's done and contributed, and he's always done it with such a positive attitude and such a love for the people in general.
Greatest contribution would be as an example of the life he lived and what he believed in. Felix was proud to be part of an era where we understood that diversity was not a problem to be solved, but it's an asset to be developed.
Well, Felix, to me, I think, is probably the closest that we come in our community to having someone we could say that is saintly. He is just a man that's above reproach. He's modest, he's sincere, he's caring, and when you're dealing with Felix, you know that you're always getting, whatever on issue, you're getting an honest opinion from him in dealing with particular issues.
He's just set a great example for me and for many others of what it means to give back to the community, of what it means to have a positive attitude in facing life and all that you do in life, whether it's work, family, community. So he's done that. He's a tireless worker, and he's a great, compassionate, caring man.
Lupe and Felix, please join me up here. Oh, no, thank you. We should have awards for them, but they're not here. So, we will just get our pictures made.
Okay.
Oh, here they are. All right. Each gets his own. They're here. So we can take our pictures.
Yours separately, yeah.
Thank you. Maybe get you, and then we'll do one of ours.
Okay. Let's
Okay,
go.
I'm so excited. You know, I don't like having my picture made. I'm being so good. Thank you. Thank you both. Now, you want to say something?
All right. Let me just. First Lady Bush, what an honor it is to have you here with us today. And on behalf of all of us, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do. And your husband, it's Doug, I've got some bad news and some good news. The bad news is that I've been asked to say a few words. The good news is that I've been asked to say no more than just a few words. So you are in luck, and Catherine, you can breathe easier. I want to thank Kelly Frails, George Martinez, and Catherine Musbacher for not allowing me to question their sanity when they approach me. I checked the date of the conversation took place, and it was not April the 1st. I am humbled and honored to join a group of Houston Giants to receive an award named after the biggest giant of all, Gene Vaughn. Gene, please take another bow. With deepest humility and gratitude, I thank God for making it possible to live and work in this great city. My sincere appreciation to Doug Foshee, Leslie Blanton, Yvonne and Rufus Cormier, and the other volunteers for all the hard work that they have done on this event. But I also need to apologize to Justice Eva Guzman, Jody Giles, Sonny Flores, and my son Stephen for having so little material to work on the video, but in spite of that downside, they were able to pull it off. In conclusion, I would like to show you our crown jewel. My best friend and bride of 44 years, my wife, Irene. Irene, please stand. Irene and I have some very good people funding our retirement. And they are our daughter, Michelle, our daughter, Elisa, and her husband, Frank, and Stephen and his wife, Michelle. So why don't y'all please stand so that everybody can see why we would never leave Houston. I hope I haven't stretched out too long the few words that were promised, Doug. But needless to say, I am blessed and thankful that I am able to convey that appreciation at all times. May God bless all of you. I thank you and I wish the very best for you and for Houston's future. Thank you very much. You got it.
I agree with everything that Lupe said. I won't repeat anything. I'll just add a few comments. First of all, I don't know if something like this could be happening anywhere else but in Houston. This is great. I'm now thoroughly convinced that the luckiest day in my life was when my parents decided to move from Mexico to come to Houston. And I'm glad that I waited until I got here before I was born. This is the greatest city to be born in, no matter where your parents came from. In fact, it's even so great that no matter if you time your birth badly, you can still have a great life. And my situation on my timing of my birth was that I was born in 1929, the day after the stock market fell. And I think the following day was Halloween. I tell people my birth must have been a very scary event for my parents. But really and truly, this is a great thing that is being done for us today, for both me and Lupe. Never could anybody like us expect something like this. In fact, when I came in and saw the room and the crowd, I took my name tag off. Anybody to know why I was here. This is great. And to be in a list of people, Gene, with you and all the others, it's only Houston, Texas has got you. To have the name of just an ordinary social worker like myself there is a great honor. And I hope, and I don't know, I think this will happen, that from now on, the social workers in Houston will know that they're appreciated and that they're important for the future of Houston. I'm sure they're going to feel that way. So thank you for that. And I just want to add a little about neighborhood centers. You know, they give me everything I have today. They got me through school when I was going to drop out of high school. They got me in college, and after I was there, they thought I could make a real social worker, and they got me through graduate school. In fact, I tell people, just to show you how much they were willing to help someone like me, when they saw that I was having a hard time finding a wife, they started the program at the center. My boss called it the Find Felix a Wife program. And just to show you how great the agency is, no matter what they undertake, what program, no matter if it's difficult and impossible, like in my situation, they're always successful. And I'd like you to see my wife, Nellie, with Nellie standing. And also the staff of neighborhood centers is here, and they've made my life, they've given my life. Could you all stand at the table over here? You know, some of you here I see are old enough to remember in our newspapers years back, there used to be a column every day that a fellow named Ripley wrote, and it was the outstanding feats and events and happenings in the world, and he called it the Ripley Believe It or Not. Y'all remember? Gene, you remember that, huh? Fine. Well, something like this that y'all are doing for me today and my brother Lupe is truly, if there was still the column, it would definitely make the Ripley Believe It or Not. So I want to thank you again for giving great meaning to my past life, my present life, and the joy that you're giving me now for my life in the Houston future. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Please enjoy your lunch. This is the time to chat it up, network, and we'll be back with you in a few minutes.
everybody. Sorry to interrupt your lunch. We don't mind if you keep chewing. Hello? Good afternoon. My name is Emily Smith Llinas, and I'm the Public Health Manager at the Montgomery County Hospital District. For the past 2 years, I've served on the Center for Houston's Future Scenario Building Team for the Scenarios 2040 project.
And I'm Raymond Lewis. I'm from down in Galveston. I'm a retired Associate Dean from the University of Texas Medical Branch. I currently am a regent with the Galveston Community College, and to the Fraga brothers, I'm a graduate of the University of Houston School of Social Work. I want to tell you a couple of things about the Scenario project. Scenarios are stories based on, of course, rigorous research, analysis, and community interviews that help us, or at least try to help us understand how the powerful driving forces that affect our world and the choices we make right now could affect our region's future decades from now. Through just an enormous number of retreats, and I think Emily and I were just trying to decide whether or not we had 5 or 25. Sometimes it felt like 25, but we had a great time doing it. We did a bunch of workshops. We had learning journeys to various aspects around the community in Galveston. Our 30-member all-volunteer team developed a thorough picture of what our region is today, and then constructed 2 stories that are plausible and we think possible. These scenarios are distinctive, different worlds in which we might someday have to live and work.
Now, it's important to note that these are not forecasts. There's, of course, no straight line from here to 2040. These stories are based on serious research, but like in any good story, there's a creative leap that must be taken. Now, 10 years ago, it may have been a little harder to understand the value of that creative leap in determining what our future would look like. But after September 11th, Katrina, Ike, a major oil spill off the coast, and the economic meltdown, to name a few things, we've learned to expect the unexpected. I also want to be clear that the scenario stories do not describe a world that the scenario team or the center likes or doesn't like, and they don't advocate any particular policy or position. But once created, they become powerful tools for each of us to decide what aspects of the possible futures we aspire to and which aspects we'd rather avoid. Then we can work, both individually and collectively, to make the appropriate choices now on our path to the future.
Later this spring, we'll begin a full public rollout of the Scenarios 2040 project with much longer videos than you're likely to see today for each story, with printed materials. Throughout the year, we'll have a full schedule of public events and workshops to explain exactly how the Scenario project can help you in planning for the future of your business, religious organization, and of course your neighborhoods. And as Mr. Vaughn has said, the future is a choice, and we like that.
We both wrote that down, actually. I also have to throw in there that you notice that we've had Galveston and Montgomery County here because we talk about greater Houston. We, in our humble opinion, think we make Houston greater. Sorry, Catherine, but no, we're glad to be here. As we start the rollout, we hope that you'll contact the center about having a workshop with your business, organization, or your county. But right now, we have the first brief sneak peek of Scenarios 2040. So imagine you're at the movies. I know there's no popcorn, but pop that shrimp in your mouth and think of this as a trailer for a blockbuster future.
Thank you, and enjoy.
Introducing the Center for Houston's Future, Scenarios 2040, a story of 2 worlds. In the playing to win scenario, we find a bustling metropolis, a region that has experienced explosive growth and that has taken its place among the most vital and influential centers of commerce in the world. The learning to live scenario describes a region that is focused less on growth and more on quality of life. A multicultural and socially conscious place where people want to invest, work, and live. Two compelling visions. Two opportunities to reflect on what's possible and begin the important work of considering our part in what happens next.
That was only the beginning. The rest will come, and we need your help in doing that. I'm Kelly Frails. I'm the chair of the Center for Houston's Future. And we think that this Scenarios 2040 project will be a blockbuster for our community. It is one of the only projects of this nature that has been undertaken by a region of the country. Different companies have engaged in scenario planning, but nowhere, in no community, no region has been undertaken like we have done in Houston. This is a business-led and community-based project. It's going to help us as we face these challenges of the future. It's going to help us in our choices, but we need your help today. There are little blue cards on the table, and we'd like for you to fill those out. Take one and take it home with you as well to your friends if you'd like to be kept up on the release of the Scenario 2040 project, because we'd like to have your help in having our community communicate and dialogue about the Scenarios 2040. So please help us. We don't sell these lists. We don't share them with other people. This is our communication list with you. It is my pleasure today to present our speaker. And the centerpiece, or a centerpiece for the Center for Houston's Future, is of course leadership. Leadership now and leadership in the future. We have recognized the Fraga brothers for their contributions and their leadership in the community. Thank you so very much. And Ms. Bush, thank you and your husband and your family for your leadership. Now we focus on leadership for the future. And we have with us as our speaker today a leader, current leader, and a future leader, someone who will be here for us in the future. Many of you know our speaker, Doug Foshee, as the chairman, president, and chief executive officer of El Paso Corporation, the owner of North America's largest pipeline system and a huge gas producer in North America. Many of you know Doug Foshee as an active member of the boards of the Greater Houston Partnership, where he served as the chair of the Environment Committee, Central Houston, or Houston Endowment. Some of you know Doug Foshee when he was a banker, or in his leadership role today as the independent trustee of the AIG Credit Trust, an appointment that was made by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. And some of us here, some of you also, remember Doug from Texas State University, where he received his BBA and was recently recognized as a distinguished alumnus. Others will remember him from Rice University, where he received his MBA and serves on the Board of Trustees. And others yet will remember him from his days at SMU in the Graduate School of Banking. Yet others of you will know Doug for his commitment to children and his commitment to education, his service on the board of KIP. After today, we will all know and remember Doug Foshee for his foresight, for his leadership, and for his commitment to the city of Houston and our region and its future. Please help me welcome Doug Foshee, our speaker.
Sorry, Lupe. Now you have 2 awards. It's great to be here this afternoon. We're in a place, there's no one on the planet that could make Jody Giles put a Texas A&M hat on other than someone named Fraga. So that's worth the price of admission. Good afternoon. Thank you, Kelly, for that generous introduction. Thanks, Leslie Blanton and Rufus and Yvonne Cormier for organizing such a great event. Thanks, Catherine, for all your great leadership of the center. And thanks, Gene Vaughn, for acting as the catalyst for this organization's success for so many years and for your enduring love for this great city we all call home. Finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't say how proud it makes me to be on the same agenda today as Felix and Lupe Fraga, 2 men whose life's work is the embodiment of the virtues of giving back selflessly to your community, virtues that we would all do well to emulate. The title printed on your program today is The Future of Leadership. And I'm going to tell you that the future of leadership in Houston today is education. And the rest of my presentation is going to attempt to prove that point. But before I get to the meat of the matter, I'd like to share with you my thoughts as I was preparing to speak to you today, a little bit of inside baseball, if you will. I've been racking my brains for months trying to ascertain why the center asked me to speak to you today. Here are the previous speakers in reverse chronological order. Secretary James Baker, Kirby John Caldwell, Dr. John Mendelson, David Lebron, Dr. Larry Faulkner, all persons of great distinction. So I'm asking myself, did they make some mistake? Did they somehow confuse Landrum Junior High School with Deerfield Academy? Or Southwest Texas State with Northwestern? And then I figured it out. They asked somebody really good first, and that person said, "No way, I'm following Secretary Baker." But if you can find some idiot to do it in 2011, then I'd be glad to speak in 2012. So this is one of those, give it to Mikey, he'll try anything kind of presentations. Then I thought to myself, no way I'm going to fall for that. Hey, I know people. And in particular, I know Jeff Love. So I went to Jeff with my dilemma, knowing the great raconteur that he is, and I asked for his help. After several long and uncomfortable moments, Jeff bent over with a furrowed brow. He finally said, "Doug, I am persuaded that your intuition in these matters is in fact somewhat insightful. And so while I believe that you lack the sagacity to properly respond to this persiflage, might I suggest that you avoid perambulation and rather ensconce yourself so as to refine a certain perspicuous oratoricality that might somehow allow you to overcome an obvious cognitive deficit. And further, might I suggest that the foci of your efforts be on pithiness, so as to avoid any narcoleptic responses that could lead to enuresis during your comments, which are in any event sure to be ineffectual at best." So of course I had no idea what that meant, but it sounded to me like Jeff was giving me a compliment, so here I am in front of you. In all seriousness, I couldn't be more honored to have the opportunity to speak in front of an audience comprised of so many of the leaders of Houston, a city that I love, a city which has offered all of us so many opportunities. I also want to commend the Center for Houston's Future for the valuable work they do in our community. It's the only organization of its kind whose purpose is to constantly look out over the horizon, beyond 10 years, to try to help shape our future and advance the Houston region. The center challenges each of us to think longer term and practice swinging where the ball is going to be rather than where it is, whether the topic is citizenship, education, health, the environment, or quality of place. I had the opportunity the other day to hear Steven Spielberg speak about DreamWorks' success, and he attributed it to the fact that, quote, "they worry everything to death and then hope everything to life." And I think that's a great analogy for the center, as you will no doubt see evidenced in the provocative questions that arise from the center's upcoming Scenario 2040 work. Catherine's asked that I share with you my personal story, but what I'd be more comfortable doing is sharing with you my family story and how I think it might be relevant to the future of our city. Neither of my parents had a college degree. They were Depression babies who believed that if you breathed, you worked, and that this was the key to success. They made a home in Houston. They worked hard. They provided for their family, and they provided for their retirement. I grew up in the original part of Spring Branch and attended Ridgecrest Elementary, Landrum Junior High School, and Spring Branch High School. I started working for a paycheck when I was about 12 as a dishwasher at a local restaurant. I still use many of the lessons I learned digging plates and glasses and silverware out of bus tubs late at night and shoving them through the dishwasher, working side by side and shoulder to shoulder with a handicapped man for whom that job was his sole means of support and for whom this was the top of the corporate ladder. I tell people all the time I lied and told them I was 16, and they lied and told me I was getting minimum wage. So I'd say that I lived larger than many young teenagers, with a paycheck every week and money in my pockets. There are no college graduates in my family, so when I was a senior in high school and my advisor told me that I shouldn't go to college, but should go to trade school instead, well, that was all I needed. I told my folks, who didn't have the experience to advise me on this, and they said, fine. So I partially followed his advice. I didn't go to college. I also didn't go to trade school. I became a bowling alley resurfacer, an honorable job with great pay for a kid right out of high school, but very physical labor, 20-hour work days, lots of travel, and significant job safety issues. Sanding down and relacquering bowling lanes with no ventilation and no respirator would not meet with OSHA's approval today. With my best friend, who had made a similar decision, I ultimately went to college here at the University of Houston while working full-time, and then to Texas State full-time where I graduated. I then went to work for Allied Bank of Texas. They were foolish enough to offer me $19,000 a year to be a banker, more money than I had ever imagined for a job I had no earthly idea how to accomplish. This exposure to business whetted my appetite, and many years later, I went back and received my MBA at Rice. I tell you all this because I think it illustrates a primary challenge as well as a profound opportunity that our community faces today. First, in essentially one generation, we went from a place where a young couple could do just fine without a college degree or some form of post-high school training to one where that is practically impossible. And second, with one college graduate, you can change a generations-long cycle. You see, I can tell you without a doubt that each of my 4 children will graduate from college. That's going from a batting average of 0 with my parents to a batting average of 333 among me and my siblings to a batting average of 1,000 with my kids in 2 generations. Felix, you're a baseball guy. That's a pretty good batting average. That's the power of education. Now for some sobering news. To date, we're losing the education war. Nationally, in the last 35 years, in inflation-adjusted dollars, we have doubled K through 12 spending, more than tripled the number of teachers in our classes, and reduced the student-teacher ratio 43%. What have we got to show for it? Bupkis. And guess what? We've got no one to blame but ourselves. SAT scores have been flat since the 1970s. High school graduation rates in the U.S. lag nearly every single OECD country. And that's for all kids. For minorities, it is much, much worse. Black and Latino 12th graders read and do math at the same level as white 8th graders. In New York State, of those in 9th grade in 2002, only 13% of black and Hispanic males and 7% of English language learners were in their 2nd year of college 6 years later. And less than 20% of those in the bottom half of the economic ladder graduate from any four-year college. The fact is today, the color of your skin and the zip code you live in are almost entirely determinative of the quality of education you're provided. So why does that matter, and especially now? And why does it matter in this room, given that many or most of those here have the right color skin and live in the right zip codes? Well, here's why. First and most important for me is the fact that my faith tells me that this situation is immoral and allowing it to continue to exist is a sin. But if that doesn't work for you, then how about this? A college graduate will make over $1 million more than a high school graduate over their lifetime. From 1998 to 2008, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 10.2 million jobs were created for college grads. You know how many it was for high school? 120,000. And for high school dropouts, well, they went down 600,000 jobs. 44% of high school dropouts are not in the workforce, and 15% more are unemployed. Those are staggering figures, and they have only gotten worse in today's economy. But these are national figures. Ours are much better, right? Well, actually, no. The fact that Texas was a lone shining star in the recent economic downturn is cold comfort as we face our longer-term challenges. We can certainly brag about recent economic performance, but we have real vulnerabilities. In a recent speech to the Texas legislature, Richard Fisher shared some sobering information. The Beacon Hill Institute's State Competitiveness Report gave us mixed reviews. On the positive side of the ledger, low tax burden, employment in high-tech industries, venture capital, IPOs, low unionization, unrestricted minimum wages, exports, foreign direct investment, and percent of population born abroad who come here to work. But on the negative side of the ledger, Texas was ranked at or near the bottom in almost every human capital measure. We are dead last in percentage of adults with high school diplomas, 37th in percent of population enrolled in degree-granting institutions, 35th in academic research and development, and 41st in science and engineering degrees awarded. That's right, the state that is the home to the energy capital of the world is 41st in the nation in creating scientists and engineers. The Association of American Universities, or AAU, comprises 61 U.S. and Canadian universities and is considered the cream of the crop of research universities. Those 61 schools garner 58% of all federal research and development dollars. They house 82% of all members of the National Academy of Scientists, the National Academy of Engineering, and the Institute of Medicine. Since 1901, 35%, one-third of all Nobel Prizes have gone to individuals at those 61 universities. California has 9 AAU members. New York has 9 AAU members. Texas, 3. Rice, UT Austin, Texas A&M. Today in Houston, only about 15% of HISD freshmen end up graduating from college. Those numbers drop to 7% for Hispanics and 11% for African Americans. And we're on the front end of a massive demographic shift that will serve to make these challenges even greater. Oh, and did I mention that education, which is 40% of state spending, is being discussed in the context of massive deficits? So with that bright and sunny prologue, let me tell you what my vision is for Houston 20 years from now. To be admired throughout the world as the first major city in the nation to face its education challenges head-on, to fix the problem, and to vault itself from laggard to peerless. A city where every single child is offered a high-quality education to prepare them for the jobs of the 21st century. And that, my friends, will take leadership. Even if you believe this should be the priority, why would you possibly believe that this could become a reality? Well, I think Jim Collins' concept of the flywheel in his book, Good to Great, is a great analogy for this. Picture a huge, heavy flywheel, he says, a massive metal disc mounted horizontally on an axle, about 30 feet in diameter, 2 feet thick, weighing 5,000 pounds. Your task is to get that flywheel rotating on the axle as fast and as long as possible. Pushing with great effort, you get the flywheel to inch forward, moving almost imperceptibly at first. Then it moves a bit faster. 1 revolution, 2 revolutions, 3 revolutions, 4, 5, 6, and then at some point, breakthrough. The momentum kicks in your favor, and its own heavy weight works for you. Someone later asked, what was the one big push that caused this thing to go so fast? Well, you couldn't possibly answer that question because it's nonsensical. It was all of the pushes together. That's where I see Houston right now, this very minute. If you don't know it, Houston today is the epicenter of education reform in our country. Of course, we have KIPP and Yes Prep and their founders Mike Feinberg and Chris Barbick. These two are proving that charter schools can provide sustained, high-quality education and can do so at scale. By 2014, they'll be sending more kids to college than HISD. And there's Yellowstone Academy, and Provision, a unique school for at-risk boys, and Small Steps, a faith-based preschool for underprivileged kids, and REAP at Rice University, the Rice Education and Entrepreneurship Program supported by both the Jones School and the Houston Endowment, and many more that I'm leaving out. Then there are the totally new educational models, like Cristo Rey, a Jesuit high school where 4 students share a full-time job between them and essentially pay for their own high-quality college prep education. They're practically brand new, driven by a visionary and energetic leader, Father Martinez, and they just raised $1.8 million at their first school gala, the largest in Houston this year. By the way, way to go, B. Dixon. Or Genesis Works, headed by its visionary founder, Jorge Alvarez. Genesis Works changes the life trajectory of underprivileged kids by enabling them to work in meaningful internships at companies during their senior year in high school, better preparing them for success in college and success in life. Many of you in this room employ these kids, as does El Paso, and I can tell you that it is us who are blessed by them and not the other way around. Genesis Works results are phenomenal. Or the House of Tiny Treasures provided by Search, where the children of the homeless of Houston are provided the education and counseling necessary to succeed in school. Here's what Bill Boyer said last week at the Search annual luncheon, quote, "After spending time working with organizations whose missions are to end hunger, end homelessness, and educate our most at-risk children, the most important thing I've learned is that it all starts with educating our kids. 59% of the adults at the Search Learning Center have less than a 4th grade education. Another 37% are 4th to 7th grade level. That's 96% of the adults at Search's Adult Education Center with less than an 8th grade education. And there's Teach for America. TFA has been in Houston for 20 years, and with 500 core members, it is the largest concentration of core members of any city in America. And guess what? Half of them stay in Houston even after they complete their 2-year commitment to Teach for America. That means that hundreds of the nation's best and brightest college graduates are choosing Houston as a home, a larger impact in any given year than the largest company in the city. And TFA's new executive director, Terry Bruner, has big, big expansion plans. And lest you think this is a charter school story, you know who the largest employer of Teach for America core members is? It's HISD, the largest in the city and the largest in the country. And their new leader, Terry Greer, is embracing this as a way to build human capital in the nation's 7th largest school district. 10 to 15% of new teacher hires in HISD each year are now TFA. This year, 27,000 students in HISD will be taught by 363 corps members. And our own James Calloway, along with many others, is working tirelessly to improve public education with the Apollo 20 program. These are but a few of the pushes on the flywheel. None of them by themselves offer the opportunity to achieve that vision I laid out a minute ago, but in combination, they can. In fact, they already are. And people around the country are noticing, adding another push. Education reformers and some of the world's largest philanthropists, people who have last names like Gates, want to be here in Houston, where education reform is real. The flywheel is moving, and in many ways it's rotating the right direction, but it's not rotating fast enough. And so we need lots more shoulders at the wheel, pushing and pushing and pushing until we have that breakthrough. When the momentum of the wheel takes over, and when the kid not graduating from high school and not going to college or community college is the exception and not the rule. Finally, I've left out one of the pushes. In fact, I've left out the most important push. This is Texas, and this is Houston. Come on, you all know it. We don't have to be bashful. This is the most welcoming, most compassionate city in America. It's a city with the greatest of pioneering legacies. We all in this room stand on the shoulders of the Smiths and the Allens and the Browns and of Jesse Jones and the Cullens and the Loves and so many countless others that came to this city, made it their home, made their fortunes here, and then reinvested their time and their treasures back into Houston so that we can enjoy the city that we know today. And it's not just individuals. I can't think of anything more consistent with the goal of a company to maximize long-term value to their shareholders than making investments that lead to greater and greater human capital in Houston. That's the single largest determinant of success in a knowledge-based economy. Many, many companies are already heavily invested in quality education, but more is needed, especially now. And that brings me to the topic of citizenship. Citizenship originated in its popular notion in Greece, where it wasn't seen as a public matter, separated from the private life of an individual. Citizens saw obligations to community as an opportunity to be virtuous, and it was a source of honor and respect. Aristotle famously said that, quote, "To take no part in the running of the community's affairs is to be either a beast or a god." And I believe this is where Houstonians have it all licked. We get that more than any other city. Richard Fisher, the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, used a quote recently that I think captures my feeling about the odds of us achieving that vision I laid out a few minutes ago. To be admired throughout the world as the first major city in the nation to face its educational challenges head on, to fix the problem, and to vault itself from laggard to peerless, a city where every single child is offered a high-quality education to prepare themselves for the jobs of the 21st century. The quote Richard used is from T.R. Fehrenbach's History of Texas-styled Lone Star. Fehrenbach distills the Texas spirit, for which you can substitute the Houston spirit, into one simple sentence. Men who exist get overrun by men who act. So what's it going to be? Are you going to exist, or are you going to act? Thank you very much.
Doug, I thank you so much for those inspiring words, and we all know innately that education is so important, but so many times we don't really focus on it like we should. And you have given us individual direction on what we need to do for the future. Thank you. Yvonne, Rufus, and Leslie, could you join me here, please? I didn't ask you to stay just so that you get a good standing ovation, but because we do have something, a token of appreciation for your preparation and your thoughtfulness today in making this speech to this august group. And so we'd like to present you a little token from the Center for Houston's Future. We also particularly want to recognize our presenting sponsor, Chevron. So, Joni Baird, would you please join Leslie and me and let us also share with you a token of our appreciation. And thank all of you from the Chevron table here who I met earlier. Without the sponsors and without the table purchasers, this event could not be what it is. Thank you so much. As Doug concluded, he said, are you going to exist or are you going to act? And that really gives us a send-off as we go our way. Also, Doug, I will say that you have not read the scenarios, I don't think, but education is key in these scenarios, and as you participate with us in months to come, you will see what an important role and a pivotal role that education or the lack of education plays in these stories about what our future may be like. And as you go forward today, please remember the Center for Houston's Future. Remember our indicator studies that next year, this year, we are addressing education. We addressed water quality, and green buildings this past year, and we are involved in the leadership of our community. Thank you so very much. Oh, before we go, I forgot this. Catherine Mossbacker and the staff, will you please stand and let us thank you for what you do. We have a very small staff. We have 7 people, and they do a tremendous job. And the interesting thing is that everybody's job is everybody else's job. It's a cooperative group, and with your support and the support of those who help our organization, we're able to function. Thank you so very much.